Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Today my group will present on economy in Japan. And firstly, let me introduce our group members. The first one is Muhammad Faizuddin bin Muhammad Jamal. Second one is Muhammad Fauzan bin Muhammad. The third one is me, which is Muhammad Aiman bin Saad. The fourth is Aiman Hakim bin Muhammad Muslim. And the last one is Amir Faiz bin Abdul Hadi. So before any further ado, let me introduce you to the table of content. The first one, we got Introduction to Japan Economy. Second one is Macroeconomics Problem Faces by Japan. The third one is Type of Inflation and Unemployment in Japan. The fourth is the Causes of Inflation and Unemployment in Japan. The fifth one, we got Solution to Inflation and Unemployment in Japan, which we include the fiscal policy and also the monetary policy. The sixth one is conclusion, and the last one is the references.
Alright, let me continue slide the presentation. First, I am going to introduce the background of Japan. So, Japan is an East Asian island country situated in the northwest corner of the Pacific Ocean. It spans northward from the Sea of Okhotsk to the East China Sea and Taiwan. Japan is located inside the Ring of Fire, which surrounds a large portion of the Pacific Ocean rim and is the epicenter of countless volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Japan is home to a number of major cities, including Yokohama, Sapporo, Osaka, Nagoya, Fukuoka, Kobe, and Kyoto. Japan is the 10th most populous nation on the planet and one of the most densely inhabited and urbanized countries on the planet. Japan's national flag is a rectangular white banner in the center with a crimson red circle. This flag is officially called the Nishiki, which translates as Flag of the Sun, but it is more known in Japan as the Hinomaru, which means as Circle of the Sun. Next slide is about overview of Japan economy. Japan has a well-developed free market economy. Japan has the third largest nominal GDP and the fourth largest purchasing power parity in the globe. PPP, it is the world's second biggest developed economy. Japan is a G7 and G20 member. Japan is the third biggest vehicle manufacturer in the world and is home to one of the world's leading electronic industries. It is often regarded as one of the most innovative nations in the world, topping numerous metrics of worldwide patent filings. We continue with the slide of current situation of Japan economy. Japan economic recovery has started, but it will be uneven until the second half of 2022 at the earliest. At the start of this year, the Omicron epidemic devastated the economy. Furthermore, rising energy prices will erode consumer spending power and increase imports. Meanwhile, supply chain constraints will restrain export growth. Although officials are encouraging business to accelerate pay increase, significant wage growth is unlikely this year. Below is the graph of Japan recovery has been weak compared to other developed countries. We continue with the slide of population of Japan. Japan now has a population of 125,771,286 million people as of Saturday, April 30, 2022. According to Worldometer elaboration of the most recent United Nations statistics, according to UN statistics, Japan 2020 population is expected.
So next, let's proceed to economic activity in Japan. Japan exported 7.19 trillion and imported 7.86 trillion in February 2022, leading to a negative trade balance of 670 billion. Japan's exports climbed by 1.15 trillion, which is 19.1% between February 2021 and February 2022, from 6.04 trillion to 7.19 trillion, while imports increased by 2.03 trillion, which is around 34.9%, from 5.83 trillion to 7.86 trillion. Japan's export will lead by Aichi 1.39 trillion, Chiba 1.27 trillion, Osaka 957 billion, Kanagawa 715 billion, and Hyogo 567 billion, while imports were led by Chiba 1.98 trillion, Tokyo 1.03 trillion, Osaka 955 billion, Kanagawa 715 billion, and Aichi 626 billion. Japan's top export were automobiles 824 billion, unspecified commodities 516 billion, integrated circuits 313 billion, machine and equipment of a various kind 307 billion, and vehicle part 293 billion. In February 2022, Japan's biggest imports were crude petroleum, which is $809 billion, petroleum gas $764 billion, coal briquettes $360 billion, integrated circuit $247 billion, and packaged medical equipment, which is $198 billion.
Next slide is about the national income of Japan. Based on the latest information, Japan's gross national product shows a rise to 55265400 JPY billion from 548422.70 JPY billion. Below are the chart for national income of Japan. We move to the slide of national debt of Japan. Japan's consolidated fiscal balance, according to the most recent statistic, had a deficit equivalent to 7.8% of nominal GDP in March 2022. In December 2020, the country's government debt was 224.9% of its nominal GDP. Japan's nominal GDP was $1,318.8 billion in December 2020. Japan's national government debt was $10,784.5 billion in February 2022, up from $10,659.8 billion the previous month. Macroeconomics problem faced by Japan. First is inflation. Japan's inflation rate is really one of the lowest in the world. Japan's national debt as a percentage of GDP has increased dramatically over the years, and the country's budget balance as a percentage of gross domestic product GDP has been running at a deficit of roughly 10% of GDP over the last several years. The statistic depicts Japan's inflation rate from 1986 through 2020, with estimate until 2036. The inflation rate is determined by the rise in the price of a certain product basket. This product basket is comprised of goods and services that the typical customer purchases during the year. They cover food, clothing, rent, electricity, telecommunication, recreational activities, and raw materials, as well as federal fees and taxes. In 2020, Japan's inflation rate was around negative 0.03% lower than the previous year. Food and housing are the two most significant categories in Japan's Consumer Price Index. Transportation and communication make up 14% of the budget. Culture and leisure make up 11.5%. Fuel, light and water make up 7%. Medical care makes up 4.3%, and clothing and footwear make up 4%. The remainder is made up of furniture and domestic appliances, education and other products and services. Below are the chart for inflation in 2022. Next, we move to unemployment. Japan unemployment rate from 1999 to 2020. This statistic depicts Japan's unemployment rate. Japan's unemployment rate was around 2.97% in 2020. Japan's unemployment rate is one of the most respected and valuable in the world, as it is decreasing due to increased job opportunities in both the public and private sectors. Japan's population or residents live a healthy lifestyle and work to keep the environment clean. As is the case with economic theory, the proportion of the labor force that is unemployed is close to the floor, indication based on charts and graph.
3.0 Type of inflation in Japan. There are two forms of inflation: cost push inflation and demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation indicates that price have been pushed up by risk in the cost of any of the four components of production: labor, capital, land, or entrepreneurship, while business are already operating at full capacity. Demand pull inflation, however, happen when there is a risk in aggregate demand, which is classified by the four sectors of the macroeconomy. 3.1 Type of unemployment in Japan. There are 6 distinct forms of unemployment: classical, frictional, seasonal, structural, technological, and cyclical. Japan unemployment is characterized by structural unemployment, long-term unemployment caused by fundamental transformation in an economy and worsened by external forces such as technology, competition, and government policy, is structural unemployment.
Okay, next I will talk about the cause of inflation in Japan. There are many reasons that can cause inflation and unemployment in the country. First of all, it is due to exhaustion of natural resources or natural disaster. If a main resource becomes limited, the aggregate supply curve will shift to the left and price will be increased. For example, COVID-19 outbreak that happened around the world. In Japan, the total case of infection already reached 9 million. Immediately after the COVID-19 outbreak in spring 2020, GDP for Japan plunged significantly due to widespread social restriction. The next cause of inflation of Japan are due to import prices inflation. The conflict of Russia invasion of Ukraine. The war will affect the global economy through 3 channels. The first is the rise on international commodity price. The second is contraction of trade activity and interference of supply chain. The third is the deterioration in firms and households sentiment. The rise of commodity price seems to be point to have the greatest impact. Next is the causes of unemployment in Japan. Unemployment is people who are in the working age group are able to work but unable to find suitable job. In Japan, they have low unemployment rate but still have a number of people who doesn't get the job yet. The cause of the unemployment in Japan is due to demands of product falls. It is due to inflation, which of the price of product increase, low salary, and the decrease of the product quality. Moreover, the cost of unemployment is due to workers and firms are not matching. This happens when people feel unsuitable to work there because it requires more skills and high knowledge to be hired there. Also, the knowledge they gain is not following the current trend and situation that are happening in the country. And the last cause is when people are being picky when looking for the job. This happens when many among the youngsters are looking for the works according to their expectation. For example, people want to work together with their friends, but when the firm reject the statements, they give up to work for the firm and find the other places.
So let's go to 5.0 solution for inflation problem in Japan. So we got contractionary monetary policy. The central bank may limit the money supply using a variety of monetary tools, including open market operation, an increase in the minimum reserve ratio, the demand for special deposit, and an increase in the interest rate. This action will decrease money generation, consumption, and investment, hence decreasing aggregate demand. Consequently, prices will fall as a result. So for solution 1, Bank of Japan's main monetary policy instrument. In recent years, the Bank of Japan has targeted a certain level for the uncollateralized overnight call rate, with open market operation aiming at boosting the supply of funds when the overnight call rate is above goal, and lowering the provision of funds when it is below target. The current account balances held by private financial institutions with the central bank are the money whose provision the bank alters in its daily open market activities. So, solution number 2, open market operation. Since the beginning of 2001, the Bank of Japan has transitioned from a designated time net settlement system to a real-time gross settlement system (RTGS), which enables the bank to execute all transactions in real time and order by order. The average size of the bank's daily market operation is substantially larger than the average size of the Federal Reserve daily market operation, since daily change in banknotes in circulation and the treasury balance in Japan are significantly bigger than in other industrialized nations. Solution number 3. Standing facilities. The Bank of Japan used the discount window as a tool for active liquidity management until mid-1995. The quantity and duration of credits issued via the window were completely at the bank's discretion, and loans might be recalled at any time. However, the window proved ineffective when the bank lowered the overnight call rate below the discount rate, and the bank declared in January 1996 that it would no longer employ discount credit as part of its routine liquidity management activities. So next we got contractionary fiscal policy. The government lessens inflationary pressure on the economy by adopting a budget surplus. The abundance reducing government expenditures (G) and or raising taxes (T) are the two weapons of budget surplus used to reduce aggregate demand (D) AD, because AD equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. A drop in any of its constituents will result in a decrease in AD. So, solution 1. Boosting tax rates. When government raises taxes, less funds remain in the wallets of businesses and their workers. A risk associated with raising taxes during a recession is that total tax revenues will climb, pushing the government to raise expenditure and maybe introduce new critical service. Inconsistent evidence exists on whether or not general and particular tax cuts improve the actual economy.
Hi, I'm Faiz. So for now, I will continue with solution for unemployment problem in Japan. Japan has a lower unemployment rate than other nations. As a result, despite rising unemployment rates in other nations, the Japanese experience continues to refute the idea that wage rigidities and widespread unemployment are inevitable byproducts of a market economy. Japan has a lower unemployment rate than other nations, but its superior performance is due to an unemployment structure that is biased against a decline in the number of working people. Last but not least, 6.0 conclusion. In Japan, despite the existence of monetary policy and fiscal policy, one of the countermeasures that can be considered to combat inflation and deflation is the imposition of maximum price control on essential and non-essential goods. On the other hand, other macroeconomic issues facing Japan, such as unemployment, can be mitigated by the government efforts to motivate the workforce through increased training and retraining. The objective is to provide the long-term unemployed with new skills that will enable them to find employment in growing industry, such as retraining unemployed skilled workers in administrative skills that will aid them in finding work in the service sector. In establishing this equilibrium and achieving employment stability, it is also essential to address a variety of labour market and employment issues, which can vary widely by age group, industry, job type and employment pattern, among other factors.